episode 30, double DIY builds. This is going to be some good stuff right here. We have a lot of things going on in the fish basement. Before I get into the actual builds though, I thought I'd show you why I'm making these builds. So we'll look at the tanks that are going to be going into the new builds and, you know, why they need to go into new tanks, why they're not okay where they are. Let's take a look. So like I talked about before, I want to take the Asian jungle stream aquarium, and yes, it is looking like a jungle, and get it into a bigger tank. It's the same reason with a lot of the other tanks, like, well, let's see. Predator Bay, why we want to go big there to give the right amount of space for what I want to keep in it. For the 3,000 gallon, you know, why we went big there, and you know, what we're able to keep in it and how we're able to keep them by going big. And then of course the 1,500 gallon, which is made up of 2 tanks and a very large refugium. So we want to give these guys the same treatment. We want to have an aquarium where I can really expand on the scape and not just keep some of the Asian, Southeast Asian fish species I want to keep, but be able to keep all of them and be able to do a lot more with the scape. As you can see here, I'm a little overgrown. I'm running out of space. So we will be moving all of this into a big new DIY home that we're building right now. And of course, the other half of the DIY build is our Amazonian cichlids over here. We all know even the smaller cichlids, even the ones that aren't as super aggressive like the pike and the Oscars and the peacock bass, they get big. You know, these Severum, this Geophagus, these true peacock cichlids, true parrot cichlids, they get big, they need a bigger home. And you know, anyone knows the 220, I've never been able to get this tank exactly how I wanted it because I just haven't had enough room front to back. Both of these aquariums, 6 feet left to right, it's pretty good. Actually, you can do a lot with that. I just need more depth, and that's where the new DIY builds come in. So let's get straight into it. Okay, that was fun. Moving all the gym equipment from the basement to the gym building. That's a hell of a workout in and of itself, but it is all done. And most importantly, that means that the new fish room is all empty and ready to be prepped for 2 new big DIY aquarium builds. Let's go take a look. Okay, we see that the weights have made it to the gym shed and the new fish room annex is nice and empty. And if you might notice on the wall, that's not paint that hasn't dried yet. That is me apparently being colorblind. I was trying to reuse some old paint and I thought these 2 were the same, and I started painting and they're not the same. So guess what? I get to paint again. But I found some other old paints from other rooms I painted in the house. I'm going to mix them together ahead of time. That way I can't get it wrong. I'll just end up with maybe a goofy color, but we'll see. And I will repaint these walls, and then I will get started on the masonry paint on the floor. So we're going to get this all painted up because we have lots of DIY work to do, lots of cool tanks to build, and we can't have this nasty grubby floor underneath it. And of course, you can't start a couple of big DIY aquarium builds without a bunch of wood. So we have a bunch of 2x6s so we can get started on the framing for the stands and the framing for the tank for where the plywood's going to go. So keep in mind we have well, actually they keep changing. I think last time I said there were 2 6x4s. One of them is going to be a 6x5. The other one's going to be a 6x4. So all right, so I got a lot of work cut out ahead of me. I got to repaint those walls, get that floor painted with the concrete paint, and get this wood unloaded and start getting it cut up so we can start building these tanks. Let's get going. Well, I would say that our Asian jungle stream tank is definitely living up to its name of looking like a jungle. But the reason I'm showing you this tank is because we're not going to see this tank much longer. This tank's going to get torn down. And that might sound like a bad thing, but in this case, it's a good thing. Because everybody in this tank is getting a new home in the fish room annex where we're starting our new DIY builds right now. So they are moving up in the world to bigger and better. And then of course, once these guys do move into their bigger, better home, we're going to have to do something with this aquarium. We're going to have to find a good use for this. So I have some ideas, but I think something that's a little more in scale with a 125 gallon tank, 6 foot, 18 inches front to back. I think they're 20-ish, 21 inches tall, something like that. And then of course with our sump it ends up being roughly around 180 gallons. But these guys are going to be going into a 500, so bigger, better things for them. Okay, rather than talking about the future with these guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the progress on the new aquarium basement fish annex. Okay, we are finally to the part of the video where we start building aquariums. I'm here. I have my assistant slash inspector who's checking on that corner of the new soon-to-be Amazonian Islands aquarium. And of course we have over here the new and improved upgraded Asian jungle stream tank. Let's jump in here and show you what we got so far. So obviously this is just the base of the aquariums. You got to start somewhere. We start at the bottom and work our way up. So what we have here is we have 2 layers of 2x6s. This gives you the footprint of the aquarium. So for this one here, we are 6 feet wide and we are 5 feet front to back. So a really nice chunky aquarium, 6x5, and then it'll be 3 feet tall. Not the whole aquarium, but the part with the fish in it will be 3 feet tall. And in the front here, we'll have the sump. So this is a wider area here than in the back, but that's because this is the sump and that's simply just empty space, and this is the middle support. So what we're going to do now that we have this foundation in place is, just like on Predator Bay, we're going to bring up the feet. So they'll have a guide on the outside and then 2x6s on the inside for strength, and then we'll do that on each side all across. So there'll be 3 beams going across, and they'll be at the right height to give us room underneath to manage the sump. And then once the beam's in place, we'll do the cross bracing. And actually with every build I smarten up a little bit, so rather than putting the beams in first completely and then working all the cross braces in using the joist hangers, which takes more time, takes more money, what I'll do now is I will get the guides up, the side posts up, and then I will build just the inside beams as like H's, for example, two beams with the cross pieces already in place, and then sit them in there. And then once I'm done with that, I'll just fill in with the other pieces of wood to create the big thick triple beams that you see. So that'll save a lot of time and energy, and be better. So like I said, with all these we get a little better each time. And then we're obviously going to do the same build over here. You see that the space for the sump is a little smaller because the tank is a little smaller. So this tank here, the Asian jungle, the new and improved Asian jungle stream tank, is 6 feet wide, just like the other aquarium, but we are 4 feet front to back on this one. So 6x4, and the other one's 6x5, and the same height, 3 feet tall, of the actual swimming space for the fish, and the same construction. We do the same construction over here. So what I will do now is I will start working on those beams and all the cross pieces, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at that. Of course, we can't start the next stage of building the tank without more wood, and this is not repeat film from the first trip. This is another batch of wood. What I had the first time pretty much went into that framing, and there's like 4 or 5 pieces left, which struck the uprights, but always need more wood. So let me get this moved in. Okay, thought I'd take a break for a minute to show you the progress so far. I know some of the other builds I just built and then showed you the results. I want to try to show more of the in-between stuff here, and I promise it's not just because I need to take a break because I'm sweating my you-know-what off, but let me show where we're at. Okay, so you see we have 4 of the posts up, the uprights. This is what I call the guide here, and that's what our top framing bracing is going to go into, and then of course it just sits on these guys here, and that's what gives us all the real strength. And as you can see, we have the first, what I call ladder framing section that I was able to build on the ground down here. That way I could screw in through the sides on both sides, since obviously we're up against the wall, so that limits what we can do there. And then I basically on the back will just fill in with 2 more 2x6s, so you'll have a triple 2x6 beam going across the back. You have this guy here, there'll be a second 2x6 here, and then I'll build another one of these ladder framing sections for the front section, and that will give us the third of the center beam, so triple 2x6 here, and then of course a triple 2x6 in the front. And then at that point we will have our framing, so we'll have all of our horizontal framing in place, and it'll be ready to go ahead and put the 3/4 inch plywood on for the base of the aquarium. Then of course we just build up from there. But so we're partway done on the framing on the Amazonian Islands aquarium. I have a lot of stuff cut, just like I said, forcing myself to take a break to show the in-between steps, and not so I can catch a breather. But we know it's because I need to catch a breather. That's why I'm huffing and puffing. But labor of love, right? It's a lot of work, but these aquariums are really cool when they're built, so it is worth it. And I just realized I'm doing 2 at one time, so ouch. A lot of work to go, so I should probably get back to it. Okay, now you can see that we've got both ladder framing installed and all the cross pieces, cross beams going across in the back, in the middle, of the front, and you can sort of see the framing for the aquarium. Now, one thing you might be thinking I forgot is the legs in the middle. And I decided to go a little different, as I do in all these builds, where I wanted to go ahead and frame this out and see exactly how strong this was, and sort of get a feel of the layout before I laid out the center post, because it's easy to put those in at any time. And I'm still working on design tweaking whether I want to go with 2 smaller posts or 1 big one in the middle. Of course, on all 3 of these beams, they'll have supporting posts. No big deal to put those in whenever, so I went ahead and finished the top, then I'll be putting those in, and then we'll have what I consider the base of the aquarium, because there'll be all of our supports, and then from there, we'll be putting the plywood over the top, creating the floor of the aquarium. Well, we have one more brace to install back over there. Whenever working around these poles, it's custom DIY, right? So you're always gonna have a little bit of that, but no big deal. It's it's a pain to work in tight quarters like that, but it's not that hard. So at any rate, we get the floor of the aquarium, and then from there, we start building up that, start building up the framing, up the walls, and then, we're starting to look like an aquarium at that point. But we definitely have a great start here. We're quite a ways along. Once these supports are in and the plywood's on there, it goes pretty quick from there. So at any rate, this also helps show you the depth. So, we have 6 feet across here. And now I think with the framing in there, you can see we have that 5-foot depth. I mean, I can't even reach anywhere near back there, which, yes, like all of my tanks lately, it seems like when it comes to aquascaping, it's a situation where I have to get in the aquarium, but that's okay. I do ecosystem, nature-style aquariums, so in general, not to say that I don't go back in, because I do. We all know that. We've seen me get in the big tanks multiple times, but I don't get it that often. So I try to have the tank, run itself for the most part. I try to create a system where you're having bacteria and plants, and in the case of the saltwater live rock, doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you, so you don't have to get in and re-oxygenate too much. So when you do, it's a pain, but you don't do it too often. So all that time in between, you just end up with a very nice large scape for your fish. And of course, we have an inspection going on with my helper, so making sure everything is top-notch under there. Now, of course, this is a double DIY build, 2. So what I'm going to do is I actually have a couple of days slated to work on nothing but this. So the next steps are to put the supports in here and then do everything I did here over here. So when we get to part 2, both aquariums will be starting from this point, and then we will be moving on. We'll be putting in the floors, building up the walls, and doing that at both aquariums, because at the end of this series, we're ending up with 2 aquariums. We're ending up with Amazonian Islands and a new and improved Asian Jungle Stream aquarium. So big stuff coming. As you might notice behind me, some of the grow outs for the 3,000 gallon, well, they're in the 3,000 gallon. And unfortunately, during that process, some things, or really just in general in the fish basement, I've had a run of stuff where I've had a lot of good things happening, a little bit of bad things happening, and it's basically across the whole fish room. I've had lots of good, a little bad with 3,000. I've had lots of good, a little bad with the 150. And I've had lots of good and moderate bad with the 1,500. Fortunately, Predator Bay is all good and a maybe. There's one thing that I'm not sure about that's going on in there that could be an issue, but it may not be. I just could be worrying about something that's not a problem. But there's also been new additions. There's been good going on there. And of course, everybody who's been there has been good. So there's a lot going on, and I think the next video needs to cover all those things, because we show it all. Fortunately, most things have been good. Knock on wood, last couple years in the fish basement have by far been more good than bad. But it's been a little bit of a run this last few weeks, so I'll put something together and I'll show you everything I'm talking about. All right, thanks for watching.